Electricast. Head to Whole Foods Market to jumpstart your January during our New Year boosting event with savings on feel-good favorites store-wide. Save on organic picks, wellness staples, and more all month long.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon. Sometimes the most painful part of getting sick is the getting better part. Waiting on hold for an appointment, sitting in crowded waiting rooms, standing in line at the pharmacy, that's painful. Amazon One Medical and Amazon Pharmacy remove those painful parts of getting better with things like 24/7 virtual visits and prescriptions delivered to your door. Thanks to Amazon Pharmacy and Amazon One Medical, healthcare just got less painful.
Welcome to Her Extraordinary Life by Design, where we celebrate women who are shaping their lives one extraordinary day at a time. I'm your host, Leslie Gaudet, self-care coach for women who are ready to make self-care a priority to support them in life and business. Every week, I'll be speaking with inspiring women from various walks of life who will share their personal journeys and will discover how they have fearlessly carved their own paths as business owners, passionately pursuing their dreams and creating a meaningful impact on their communities. So let's get started. Hello, and welcome to Extraordinary Life by Design podcast. I'm your host, Leslie Gaudet, and today we're talking with Alyson MacLeod. Alyson is a 7 times international best-selling author, speaker, coach, and human potential specialist. She helps women 40 plus claim, craft, and create the life of their dreams by using her Soulful Living Blueprint. Her inspirational podcast is found on Spotify under Soul Expression Sessions. I absolutely am so excited to have you on today. I love what you do. Really excited that you have carved up some time to spend with me. So welcome, Alyson, to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Leslie. It's always a pleasure to be interviewed by you.
Thank you. Well, we've known each other for quite some time now, and I feel like we're in similar spaces where we help our clients live life as their whole selves. And so I'm really excited to have you share today because we're in January with this episode being a part of the Personal Development and Growth series, which is really meant to empower women right from the start of the beginning of 2025 with purpose. And as I said, I love your work and I'm excited for what you're going to share today. So with that being said, I just want to dive right in to what you do and how it supports this journey of personal development and growth. So you're known for helping women 40 plus create lives that align with their deepest dreams through your Soulful Living Blueprint. Could you share what inspired you to create this framework and explain how it supports women in their personal development journey?
Certainly. Thank you. It started in 2020 because of me finishing my degree in community economics and social development. I was already a certified health coach, a nutritionist, a life coach, NLP practitioner, Reiki master. Like I could go on. And it came down to the point where I sat down one day and said, okay, God, where do you want me to go with this? Like, what direction do you want me to take? Right? Because I love all of this, but I don't know where to go. And that's what came Soul Expression Sessions in the beginning, right? Talk to the whole woman, talk to find out what she wants, what she needs, how she can find purpose. And then the Soulful Living Blueprint was simply coming out of that to say, okay, there's like 6 big areas of a woman's life that she has to look at. You have your personal vision and mission, which we do in business, but we don't always do it personally. So to have that understood and who you are, what your values are, what are your core 4 that you believe your values are that you live by, and stick to living by them, right? Because sometimes we'll waver. But then how do you bring that into your health and wellness and your business and your spirituality, your contribution, and especially your relationships? Where do you want to go in all those areas and how do you want to get there? And in talking to a lot of women that I do health coaching with to talk about key hormones and how that affects all those areas of your life, well, then how do we actually design a life for you now? So if you don't like your 9 to 5, let's find the options for you because you, at the age of 40, would have a lot of experience that you could bring to the world to share, to coach, to be a consultant in business, wherever that leads you. Let's find out where you're going to get fired up and what's going to really allow you then to live in your destiny as God intended for you.
Yeah, I love that. Just getting to who we are as a whole person. So many women, when you ask them who they are, what they do. They lead with, well, whatever title they have, whether they're an entrepreneur, whether they're a woman that owns a business, they're a mom, they're a wife, they might be a grandmother, a daughter. But who are you, just for you, for the sake of just the human? And then figuring out from there, like I was in, gosh, my late 30s. I'd been almost 20 years by that time working in the field of law. And at that point, I started to really feel that there's got to be more to life than what I'm doing. But I still like kept going at it and really like just pursuing that because figuring that, well, this is a career path that I'm good at being in law. And then as I moved into my 40s, that's when things really started to shift. I started thinking, oh, like, is this really it? Like, is this what I'm going to do? But at that point, not having someone like you in my corner, I really had no idea. What would that look like to do something different? Like I knew, somehow I knew I wanted something more, but I didn't know what that looked like. I didn't have the faintest clue of where to start, even to think about looking for that, what questions to ask myself, like what am I good at? And what would if I found something I'm good at, is that something that would really light me up? I didn't have that. And so for almost, I would say like from my mid 40s right through almost to my mid 50s, I was still in the thick of things, really pushing. And that's when I started feeling I was burning out. So I can really relate to that. It's like knowing like, okay, there's more to life, but how do I get there? And who do I ask? And I think that's when I started becoming, I think more like, I guess, adventurous online and looking. Like my question that I Googled, the very first thing was, what are women doing to change from working in corporate to doing something else? I think it was like, that was the question. So I love that you talk about that because you're helping women create something that aligns with them, but figuring out what that is. That was the piece I was missing. I had to do it by myself because I really had no clue, and I'm sure you've probably had women say that to you before. I mean, I'm sure I'm not the first one that's ever said to you, I knew I wanted something else, but had no clue even where to start or even how to, like the questions even to ask, right?
Oh, absolutely. But you know what? You felt the spark, and that's great because a lot of women don't get to that. They're just like, I don't know what I want. I don't know if I want to do anything. There may be empty nesters. There may be divorced. They're already going through perimenopause and menopause, so your hormones are wreaking havoc, right? And a lot of it comes down to, you're right, when someone says, oh, that's Max's mom, or that's Keegan's mom, or, I'm a mom, or I'm a wife, or I'm something other than myself. And yes, those are all part of who you are, but you're right. You need to look closer to say, yeah, but what do you want to contribute to this world? Who do you want people to know about you? When you're gone, is there a legacy? Is there someone to look back and go, oh my gosh, Leslie left such an impact in this world. It's incredible, right? Then what is that? Because if you did that, then you're lit up. You're passionate. You're doing something you love. And I had one woman say, well, yeah, but nobody will pay me for that. I said, sweetheart, you've never asked. Like maybe someone is in the same boat and will strictly pay you to help you get through that. Because I didn't have that either. And as an executive director and a VP of another company, all of a sudden I'm like, I don't want to work for someone else anymore. And I find a lot of executives get to that point too, because we've gone through every step of the ladder and then we look up and going, yeah, but do I really want that position? Do I want that next step? This is the end of my life and it's going to be more difficult and more challenging. And I have all these other tasks, but I want to, work smarter, not harder, and less, and be able to travel or take, your kids somewhere or be with your husband, right? You have to have, that list of non-negotiables for yourself. And a lot of women won't do that, mainly too, because they don't have that self-worth and that self-love for themselves to sit down and go, what do I want? Right? Because at one point we're doing everything for everybody else and we don't want to leave the job because, oh my gosh, if I leave, how are they going to ever get all this done? Or, right. So it's really sitting down and taking stock in who you are and what you want, what you like and what you don't like, and giving yourself permission to say, I don't care what someone else thinks I need. They want me to stay safe. I know that if I take on what my heart and soul desires and I work at that, I'm going to be doing what is my destiny and where I can lead myself to help other people in a better, more strategic, fun, exciting way.
Yeah, well, you use the key word there. It's fun, like bringing that joy. And I think it's like, yeah, I had like a great career. I loved doing what I did. But as I was getting older, I always felt like I was this person who is meant to do more. I always felt like that. But, I thought, well, maybe it's this, what I'm doing because I'm good at it. And we can be good at many different things and we're allowed to change what we're doing. I think that's where people get really scared is that, well, this is my career. This is what I've been doing forever. Like you were saying, being the VP of a company. And it's like, well, no, I actually want to be my own boss. I want to be able to have the ability to travel when I want, to be able to work from wherever, as long as I have Wi-Fi, I can do that. I don't have to be, have strict, rigid things that are in place around my movements in life. I want to be able to do what I want. Like for me, being here in Mexico, like I wouldn't have been able to do that if I was still working full time for someone and going into an office every day. There would be no way. I would only be able to go on vacations, where this to me is so much more joyful to be able to come from being able to work in a place that I love, that I can be part of living a joyful, fun experience in another country, and also being able to do what I do. And I love that, and being able to support the team of lawyers and paralegals that I still do have that footprint. But I think that is where, one of the things I was think that's leading me into my next question is that many women, they feel that like life takes on a new meaning, right? After it's almost like you turn 40 and it's like you start to feel that you start to question about what's going on in your world and what you're doing. And so I was wondering, what are some of the common areas where you feel women have that desire for change or growth? And when they come to you and you work with them, especially when you start going through these different levels that you take them through, how do you guide them to embrace that new chapter with confidence, like fully? Because that can be really scary.
It can be really scary. And usually it starts with the health and wellness side, both from the mindset self-worth, but also from the changes from perimenopause to menopause. And a lot of women will say, I used to be able to eat pasta all the time. Now I can't. I feel like a blowfish. Well, because your body's changing and it metabolizes differently, and you have to look at your insulin. So, we go through a whole gamut of stuff, especially for like hormone balance for women, because it will affect how you make decisions. So if you're making emotional decisions and you're reacting instead of responding, well, business could be challenging. If you run a business yourself, then, it's decisions you're making out of an emotional reaction, and it could have consequences. So it's dialing that back to say, this is what's happening. Why don't we institute, you watching what you eat, and institute a little bit of a walking protocol. It doesn't have to be a full-on exercise hour and a half a day in the gym, but how do you love your life to be able to do it in the little pockets that you have time? Because it is a behavior change, and we're never taught that, right? As young women, that yes, when we start going through all this, there's changes every 10 to 15 years in your body. Well, maybe you won't be able to metabolize, say, tomatoes because the lectins are now giving you heartburn. Well, how did I get there? Well, let's look back at the history of what you're eating and what you're eating with it, and maybe there's an issue there. So it starts with health and wellness, and then it's like, okay, what is the next thing it's affecting? Is it affecting, your relationship with your spouse or your kids or your family or your work? Are you impatient, or do you have anxiety? Because I found too that a lot of women in her 50s, all of a sudden it's like, wow, they say I have ADHD because I'm all over the map. And it's like, you will be a little more scattered because you're looking for opportunities. You're looking for something different. There's something out there that you want. So it's like, squirrel, like you go to the next side, or the little shiny syndrome, and you're looking for something, but you don't know what it is. But then, like myself, I had a friend of mine say, wow, how long have you had ADHD? Like, how are you dealing with it? And I was like, I never knew I had it. She goes, oh, you're classic with some of the symptoms of what you do. So I'm like, okay, I sat down and looked at the path of where that is and how to put things into place, whether it's using my calendar better to organize my day for my business, blocking out strategic time that's going to move my health forward or my business forward or my relationships forward, and saying nothing else is going to take up those 2 hours, but my time with my spouse or my kids. Right? It's giving yourself permission to stop doing everything you're doing. Because I find a lot of women, I get them to do a wheel. And I said, okay, every spoke is something you're doing. Are you volunteering? Are you on a board? Are you, what else are you doing for your kids? Are you the mom that takes all the kids to hockey practice? Are you the one that does everything at the church? There's only a certain amount of time and space for you to be able to be okay. And if you keep piling on things to add to it, or when something leaves, you add something to it immediately, you're not giving yourself the time for yourself. You're not giving yourself the self-care. And it is all self-care for you to say, look, I am worthy without having to do all of this. Right? Because sometimes we're reaching out because it's like, well, no, someone else will do it, or I have to do it because I feel good when I do it. Yes, but why do you feel good? So I'm also asking them to ask that question, right? Why are you doing it? Why do you think it has to be you? Could you give it up for just 6 months and just give yourself time to heal? Give yourself time to find out who you are and why is that important? Even if it's really important, you miss it like crazy. Okay, then add it back in. But 9 times out of 10, it's things that just are busy work and they just keep you busy so you don't have to worry about what's hurting. So we kind of dig into that a little bit too, just to see how and what you need to heal where you are so you can get to where you want to be.
I love that. For me, I always try to say put self-care on your calendar first and then fill everything else in, because then you're honoring you. But then also the one thing also, the next step to that is making sure you stay accountable to your own calendar, that you put whatever the activity is that you put on there. And it doesn't have to look the same. It doesn't have to be like this big block or chunk of time. A lot of people get hung up on, when you hear people say the morning routine and you have to have 6 things. And it's like, well, that's for somebody who has maybe you're a mom who has little kids in school still. That's not going to work for you necessarily. So it doesn't have to look the same as anyone else, but putting it on your calendar first will help you then just say, okay, I'm going to honor me. And then also the other part too, what I always say is it's okay to have white space on your calendar. You don't have to fill every waking moment with something to do. But I think that's so hard for people, and especially moms. If you are the hockey mom or the soccer mom or the baseball or the recital mom or whatever that is, you're taking the kids everywhere. You've been the mom that has shown up and gone around and picked up everyone's kids, and you shuffle them all to practice and you drop everybody off and you enjoy it because you're spending time with the kids. And there's just something about being around children, which is so enjoyable and just joyful, right? But at some point, you're going to feel it, especially if you keep at it as long as you keep pushing and pushing and pushing and you don't have that time for yourself. You're going to find that you probably will burn out. And I think that's where I've talked to a lot of women who have been the mom that does everything, and even like paying attention to social media and seeing people that I know on there saying, I just had this amazing weekend and I have a great business, it's successful, and I have a great family. Why do I feel overwhelmed, disconnected, frustrated, angry, sad, crying, all of those things? Why do I feel this way? So it's really about finding, for what I like to talk about, is getting back into alignment with yourself. And I think that's really more like where my focus has been, is like really getting into that alignment and then emotional resilience, so that everything then you can approach things from that whole frame of mind. So let's talk about limiting beliefs, because I'm sure you probably hear a lot of women pushing back and saying, well, like you were saying, I can't do this, or maybe being afraid that maybe they're afraid of success. Maybe they're afraid that they won't get it right. There's always that fear of doing it wrong. And I feel like there's not really a written model that you have to follow. It really has to fit and align with you, make you feel really good. So when you work with people, or just maybe even having a consult with someone, and limiting beliefs come up, How do you help women be able to feel confident enough that they can share so they don't let their limiting beliefs hold them back from fully expressing how they feel, what they need, what they want? Because I think that's so important. And what are some of the most common limiting beliefs that you're hearing from the women that you've had the pleasure to work with or even to just have consults with?
Great question, because I think that's where everything starts, right? Because we get to a stage where our childhood, anything everyone's ever said to us, you're not good enough, money doesn't grow on trees, right? So women in business, oh, well, I can't make too much money because I don't want to upset so and so, right? I can't be a millionaire because like they always have, oh, it's a good reason. I said, well, no, it's just an excuse. It's something somebody told you that you believed in. And those beliefs regarding anything is also what's going to make your behavior. So if you think that you're not good enough, your behavior is going to be negative. It's going to be ungrateful. It's going to be something that isn't serving you to move yourself forward. And a lot of that too is just understanding, like you say, it's self-care first. It's starting every morning with, what you're grateful for, right? I say a prayer. I say what I'm grateful for. I say 5 things that I'm grateful for that's coming into my life in the future, and I just sitting down and saying, okay, if there is something from your childhood, if there's something from someone, and it tends to be from people who you admire the most, you love the most, right? They have the biggest impact in your life. Will say something like, oh, that's okay. She's slow. So, she'll get a job over here. That's okay. And then you think, oh my gosh, okay, well, if they still think I can get this job, then I'm only good enough for XYZ. But then you carry that through your life and go, oh my gosh, okay, well, maybe I just got lucky. Because I know for the longest time for myself, I would make a lot of money and then I wouldn't have any money. And I would make a little more money and then I wouldn't have any money because I would sabotage myself even in business. I've had 8 businesses now that were really successful and then something would happen. And then it dawned on me at one point when I started coaching to say, oh my gosh, that was my problem because I didn't look at money from a value perspective that it is just something that is of value for something you give of value, right? It's an exchange for something where money has such a huge emotion for people because you either had enough of it and it was used wrongly, or a lot of times they didn't have enough money, so you went without as a child. But depending on how your parents reacted to each other with money was how you now are looking at it, right? So I talked to one woman last week and I said, money's just a gift from God, and he gives it to us in exchange for value that you give in the world. Because I said, you have a job. So you go to your job, you add value, you do your job, you get paid for it, right? She went, yeah. I said, okay, that's just an exchange of what you're doing for getting money. If you do more that has a bigger impact, you'll get more money. So she finally sat down and went, oh my gosh, okay, I never looked at it that way. It was just, I'm never going to be, Rockefeller, or money doesn't grow on trees. And that seems to be a really big one for women in business because they hate sales and marketing and they hate making money. They know they want a lot of money, but there's still this thing in the back of their mind that says, I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy enough. I can't do that. People get mad at me. Oh my gosh, I don't want to look like I'm selfish. Maybe there isn't enough money out there for everybody. Like we have these preconceived notions moving forward. And it's the same with health and wellness, right? Because, I was told as a child, oh, well, that's okay. She's big boned. And I went to my doctor one day, like maybe 10 years ago, and said, okay, I'm turning 50. Like they kept telling me I'm big boned. I know I'm having some hormonal issues and I can't lose this extra 25 pounds. And he went, big boned? You're just boned. You don't have big bones or small bones. Like you could be a smaller frame, but you're still carrying more weight. So it has nothing to do with your bones. So it was me carrying that with me to say, okay, well, if I'm just big boned, maybe I'm carrying more weight because I'm big boned. And it just, she kind of laughed in my face at first and then saw my expression, went, oh my gosh, okay, you really believe this? And then had to talk through that. So it's a lot of things that we get like that don't serve us. And even in relationships, right? It's like, well, maybe you'll have a nice guy who could take care of you. Or when I got divorced, it was, like, okay, you know, you'll be fine on your own for the rest of your life. You're fine, honey. You got this. So at one point it was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be alone forever. Like, you would just take that in because of the person who told it to you. And if you love them and respect them, it does carry some weight. Whether it's rational or not, it doesn't matter to the brain. It hears it and goes, maybe it is.
Yeah.
Instead of us going, well, wait a minute. If does that serve me? Right? What does that do to me and my destiny? And can I achieve my goals that I want of being married to a wonderful Christian man and travel the world? That doesn't serve me.
Yeah, I love how you were saying that because for me, especially money was such a huge thing in our home. I watched my mom struggle. So for me, money meant struggle. I was never around long enough because as soon as she got it, she spent it. And even now today, I talk to her about money and there's this fear of letting it go, that it's not going to come back again. And I think she still holds on to that because this is just what she experienced and she never really worked through it. I had to work through that on my own and I've talked to people about it, but I really feel that that's so true. Especially in even like the comment about being big boned, that can really play on a person's self-esteem, thinking, oh, well, I'll never be skinny like her because I'm big boned. That could really wreak havoc on a person's self-esteem. And especially as a young girl, a young woman, then you grow up and you're like, oh, well, I'm in my 50s now. And, well, the doctor's telling me that I need to lose weight. And I'm just taking it up to be, well, it's because I'm big boned. And that is something that we have to understand. Like, take a look at the things that we say and really push back and say, well, is that true? Is it really true? Because like you were saying, sometimes people say things to us and I know they mean well, but it doesn't necessarily feel good when they say certain things. And they feel that they're protecting us. But it is coming from what they believe is a good place. And it's just being able to say, okay, well, that's your thoughts. This is how you feel, but that's not how I necessarily feel. So, but anyways, thank you for sharing that. I do want to move into personal development because this is what this month is all about. I believe it's not a one-time effort. I believe it's a lifelong pursuit. I feel like just every day I wake up and I want to do better. I want to be better, feel better. And I'm not trying to be perfect, but I just like to grow. So to me, learning is growing. So what are some of the strategies that you've recommended or you've done or you recommend for sustaining personal growth over time, especially when life gets busy or challenging, especially for moms, even going so far as empty nesters, because I'm sure you probably get a lot of empty nesters too. It's like, okay, like what's next?
Absolutely. I am an empty nester. And it was, a little trepidatious. My youngest son and his girlfriend were still living with me. And as it got closer, I thought, well, they're never going to leave. They'll stay. And they started packing up and moving stuff out. And it's very emotional when they're starting to do that because it's like, now what? I was driving them everywhere, getting extra groceries, taking them to dinner. Like, they were a huge part of my life. And again, when that happened, I didn't rush out to fill the space. Right. I started looking at it going, okay, this is a new chapter for me. I don't have to make a big dinner anymore. I could come home and have toast or soup or nothing if I don't want to eat dinner. Like, now I need to see what is for me and how this life is going to play out the way I want to see it. Right. And it really took some time to get used to it. Still does. It's been about 4 months, but it's nice because I am really looking at who I am and where I want to go. Like you say, personal development is over time, right? It's not something where you say you have to get up at 5 a.m. and do these 10 things and have a hot shower and a cold plunge and do all of this. Because if that's not on your plate, that's not for you. So it's looking at in part of who you are and letting go of some things. Who do you want that person to be, right? Who do you see her when she wakes up in the morning? What is she doing? Maybe it's you going and brushing your teeth and taking a shower and singing to yourself and having that great morning. or just having that downtime with a cup of coffee or a tea and being grateful, reading scripture, whatever that is for you, that starts your day in a more powerful, centered way, whether it's 5 a.m. or 7 or 8 a.m., whatever your day is, that's perfect for you. But let's find out what that is. And maybe it is getting used to getting up 20 minutes earlier to be able to have that time for yourself. Because a lot of women say, oh my gosh, I can't do that. Like, I'm just so stressed in the morning. I said, well, you're stressed because you're getting up 10 minutes before you have to get out the door. So if you get up even 10 minutes earlier, quit hitting snooze for the third time, then maybe, that time is your time. That is precious time where you can have your tea. You can do what it is that you want to do. Go walk the dog. I had one lady say, I said, go for a miracle morning walk. Just go in your backyard. She had a beautiful 1-acre property. I said, touch a tree, put your feet in the ground, like just ground yourself so you have that peaceful moment. And then you say, what do I want today to look like? And just ask yourself that. And then we started there. And now the night before, she would write out the 3 things she wants to accomplish the next day. And then when she did her miracle morning walk in the morning, she'd say, I am so grateful that I had the resources to be able to get all these 3 things done. So it will morph over time, because as you learn more about yourself, how these things play out for you, it is a personal sheet and just a personal plan that says, this is what Alyson does. And this is what Leslie does. And this is what you do. You don't have to do what I do. I'm only an example, and I want you to do what is right for you. And then put that strategy together that maybe during the day you stop and look and see what you're doing. Because if it's 2:00 in the afternoon and you haven't tackled 1, 2, or 3, then you're distracted. So then how do we look at what we need to do to help you stop getting distracted? Right. Mm-hmm. And then we go back to say, okay, well, if I start number 1 first thing in the morning and tell my staff, this is what I'm doing, then they know how to support you to do that. Right. So then we look at communication and communication styles. So there's a lot more to what I do than just giving them a sheet and ask them to write it out, because I want you to have that behavioral change that's going to make a difference for you, but is for you. It's a personal thing to you that you say, yeah, I really want to do that. I really want to be someone who exercises 3 times a week. Well, if you don't like going into the gym, then let's look at, pockets during the day that maybe you go for a quick 10-minute walk at lunch. You can walk the dog at night, or when you're watching your favorite show or the news, maybe you're doing Pilates or yoga in front of the TV. You can do that and still listen to the news, right? So it's not that you have to stop and then go to the gym unless you need that stop. I have to go to the gym. I've carved out this hour. This is what I'm going to do. But again, that's not for everybody. So let's look at what is the best behavior for you to change and move. And then we slowly move the needle so it becomes something that becomes a habit. And then that habit is serving you instead of not.
Yeah. And I love what I love is the framing of self-care as a personal development way of life. You're personally developing yourself. I love the idea of check-ins. I think it's really important because we might feel great in the morning, and by mid-afternoon, we're having a crash and it's like, well, what's going on? I love the fact that somebody pushed back and said, well, they're telling you I'm tired. I don't have that time in the morning. And you're saying, well, maybe if you got up 20 minutes earlier and don't hit snooze for that 3rd time. I'd even go a step further and say, well, how late are you going to bed? And what are you doing before you go to bed? Are you on social media scrolling, and then your brain is going a million miles an hour about everything that you just finished watching or reading? And so you fed it, and now it's trying to digest it, and you're trying to close your eyes and turn everything off. And that's impossible at times. So I love the fact that you talked about that, because we can be our own worst enemies, and we can also be our best allies if we just look at what we're doing. And again, it doesn't have to look like everybody else as long as it fits your lifestyle. That's what self-care to me is all about. It doesn't have to be this list of things that you must do. It's what fits in at this time. And maybe you have an hour on one day and you only have 20 minutes on another day. That's okay too. It's how you're filling your time to support your well-being. So I love that. So you have a podcast, Soul Expression Sessions, which focuses on personal growth and soulful living. So can you share an insight or a message that has resonated deeply with your listeners and inspired them on their growth journey?
Oh, what a fabulous question. I think probably the biggest one was I had a lady say, I don't understand what my soul expression is. I said, well, it is something that comes from deep within you that resonates with you at such a degree that if you didn't accomplish it once you realize what it is, it's going to haunt you for the rest of your life. And I had asked her what she likes, her passions. We had a wonderful call. And she finally said, well, I really I want to be an author. I'd love to write something and I'd love to travel. So I said, well, how long have you done that? Oh, I said, I've been thinking about it for about 10 years now. And I said, well, usually it's something that if, it keeps going on and on, it will nag you in the back of your brain. It'll haunt you. You'll see other authors and go, oh my gosh, I could have done that. And it's something that you're not doing. So we looked at what was stopping her. And I said, your soul expression for yourself is something that is going to bring out in you a love for life, a love for yourself, just an excitement of getting you up out of bed in the morning and what it is you want to do. And I said, you've probably written some of your book already, haven't you? And she said, well, I've jotted down notes. Well, she probably had I think at the time, 7 chapters written. So I said, well, finish the book and send it to me. Right. I gave her a date and said, I want you to have this accomplished in X number of weeks and send me a copy. And she went, oh, I said, because if nobody keeps you accountable, sometimes you're not going to get it done. And in that time, her husband was surprising her with a vacation. So I said, see, there you're traveling. When you go traveling, bring your laptop, just spend half an hour in a beautiful place and write down some notes for yourself. Well, she ended up finishing the book. And then it's okay, that's what brings your soul happiness. She said, yeah. She goes, once I started thinking about it and I was focusing on me writing this book and traveling with my husband, all of a sudden it was happening. And I said, because you let all that negativity say, okay, universe can't help you with anything because you're telling it, no, I don't want that.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, oh my gosh. I said, so, you prayed that this would happen. You were happy that things were moving forward for you. And then you allowed everything to come into your sphere and be able to do it because you were willing to take the steps to make it happen. So it's those type of things where it was really interesting because I never thought of that before from a perspective of somebody who didn't understand me, right? And how your soul and the expression of that soul comes from deep within you. And it was wonderful to see her just come out of that and go, oh my gosh, okay, now I understand. Everyone needs to know this. So it really, just got her moving on the right path. And she is much happier doing what she loves doing than everything else. So that was really, really cool.
I love that. And one of the reasons why I love that so much is that I truly feel that our deepest, most transformational moments come from the inside out. And why I feel that if I could just get inside the brain sometimes of people who listen, when they watch my videos or they listen to the podcast and I talk about or on the show with other women about self-development or anything at all that really is meant to support their well-being, but there's no actual visual yet to support it. That's where I think a lot of disconnect comes from because most people, when they buy something, you go to the store. If you're going to buy something, you take something immediately home with you. If you're online and you want to learn how to market something, so you buy a marketing program, you get something in return for your money. With self-development or personal development, especially when it comes to the type of work that both of us do, you first feel it. And then once you start to feel it, it's because it's coming from the inside out, you start to see the actual things. Then you start to see there's physical proof that the work I've done or I'm doing is really manifesting this new reality for me. But until they feel it from that perspective first, that's where I think is why I think there a lot of people can be very resistant to pulling the trigger on doing this type of work in the beginning, because they don't realize that once you do that work from the inside out, you start to feel a whole lot different. You're coming as your whole self at the things that you approach in life. And you just find more joy. It's been my personal experience, and the women I've worked with, it's been their personal experience. I'm sure the women you've worked with, and even for yourself, it's been an experience to know that it came from the inside out. You started to feel it, and then everything else started to be reflected back at you because of this new person that you are. So I love that you shared that, and I'm really excited for that your listener had that really great experience around that, because again, when you open yourself up to what you don't think is possible, but then it becomes possible, you feel like you can do anything. So I love that. So final advice for 2025 and beyond for women who are on their journey. What advice or guidance would you give to women who want to set meaningful intentions to create that positive change in their life, especially in midlife, looking to reignite their dreams?
Oh, that's wonderful. You know what? Don't be afraid to ask any questions, because that was the first person who ever asked me that. What is my soul expression? I don't know what that is. And I thought, oh my gosh, right? I've been doing this for years. Nobody ever asked me that. So don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to stand up for yourself. Be unapologetically wonderful to you, because sometimes we're, like you say, you're so afraid to come first. Put yourself first, because you can't give to everybody else if there's nothing filled in your vessel, right? And question everything. Question, all the values, all the things that have come up from your childhood. If you're in business and you talk money, ask yourself, does this serve me? Like, where did that come from? Is there something better that serves me? Reach out to a coach and just have our discovery, sessions to see if that's something you need to do. And the one thing that has just come up is some people say, oh, well, you're just woo-woo. And I'm like, well, if I'm woo-woo and Leslie's woo-woo and we're all woo-woo, well, we're making a big impact in the world and we're living the life of our dreams. So do you want a bit of the woo-woo?
I love that.
Right. It's just, look at us as examples of doing what we love and say, okay, how do I get some of that energy? Who do I have to be that? And allow yourself permission to grow into that person. It's not all going to happen at once. And you don't have to run around and tell everybody you're doing it. Do it for yourself. When you become that person that people go, I don't have to protect, or I don't have to tell them something because I'm afraid they're going in the wrong direction, they'll look at you and go, oh my gosh, look at her. She's shining. She's confident. She knows what she's doing. And it's something you have and you grow into and you give to the world, because that energy that exudes out of you, like you say, from the inside out, that is what's going to allow people to then maybe change how they look at the world, right? Look at your confidence. Oh my gosh, look where she came from. That's amazing. How did she do that? Right? Instead of, oh my gosh, don't do that. I think that, maybe you should just go get a job. How about you get a second job and you'll be okay because you can work weekends, right? Where you're going, no, I want to run my own business. But if you've already run around and told everybody you're going to find your own business and they don't see you with the qualities or the strength or the means to get there, they are going to come after you to say, hey, whoa, wait a minute. So do that for yourself. Be 2025 is that gift that is you, right? That gift that you now allow yourself to be exactly who you are, who you want to be, and absolutely love every second of it. I would love that for every woman out there.
Oh, I love that. Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here today. Thank you so much for sharing your time and sharing your insights, helping women step into a life filled with purpose, alignment, and fulfillment. I really love how you approach personal growth from that self-care piece. Like, I really love that. And it's a journey of reconnecting with ourselves and shaping the lives that genuinely reflect who we are. So thank you again, Alyson, for being here with me today and sharing your wisdom with all of us.
Oh, you are most welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
And to our listeners, if you'd like to connect with Alyson directly and learn more about the empowering work she does, you can find her contact information in the show notes. Remember, every step that you take toward your growth journey is a step toward creating the life you truly desire. Embrace each moment, honor each lesson, and trust that you are building something beautiful and meaningful. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep believing, and keep designing your extraordinary life one day at a time. Thank you for joining me on Her Extraordinary Life by Design. I hope you've been inspired and empowered by the incredible stories shared on this show. If you enjoyed this episode and the conversations we've had, I would greatly appreciate if you could take a moment to leave a review. Your feedback and support mean the world to me, and it will help others discover the podcast and join our empowering community. Remember to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Together, we can continue to learn from these amazing women, uncover their extraordinary journeys, and be motivated to create our own lives by design. Thank you again for tuning in. Until next time, stay empowered and keep shaping your extraordinary life one day at a time.
Hi everyone, I'm Geraldine Glass, a leader in the field of music as medicine, and I'm excited to share with you my newest release of healing sound, Pentatonic Visions, with Chris Scholler and Electrocast Records. Immerse yourself in ethereal realms where the harmonies of nature, tribal rhythms, and soundscapes blend with the crystal singing bowls. It's out now, streaming on all platforms.
Hey, heard you like podcasts? Well, check out Dollar Bets. Two sports guys with faces for radio, betting live money against each other on air. That's Dollar Bets with a Z. Find us on the Winner's Edge.
Electricast.